special? Who says you can't be in movies? Listen to me, listen to me. Who says you don't pass the test? Who says you can't be the best? Who said, would you tell me who said that? Yeah, who says you're not perfect? Who says you're not worth it? Who says you're the only one that's perfect? Trust me, that's the price of beauty. Who says you're not pretty? Who says you're not beautiful? Who says you're not perfect? Who says you're not worth it? Who says you're the only one that's hurting? Trust me, that's the price of beauty. Who says you're not pretty? Who says you're not beautiful? Who says? About it every night and day. I'm addicted, wanna jump inside your love.
Welcome to the 97th Annual World Trade Week Conference. Please welcome your host, award-winning journalist and anchor of ABC 7 Eyewitness News, David Ono.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's exciting to be here at the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce's World Trade Week Southern California Kickoff Conference. I've done this several years now, and it's such a great pleasure to be here. For over 97 years, the LA Area Chamber has been committed to supporting global trading throughout the region, recognizing the significance and importance of international markets. The Chamber has a deep legacy of fostering international trade, but today, now more than ever, it is essential that we strengthen supply chains to ensure that we remain competitive. So this year's theme is building a future-ready supply chain. And this morning, we have an amazing program to dive into these topics. So once again, we welcome you to the 2023 World Trade Week Southern California Conference. Thank you all for being here today. And now let's turn to the future of international trade. So education has long been a cornerstone of World Trade Week. So we engage with high school and college students to highlight career opportunities in international trade. Earlier this morning, we awarded 8 exceptional young men and women with scholarships. They all demonstrate an interest in pursuing a career in international trade. So I would like to ask them to stand and be recognized. Please hold your applause because I'm going to introduce you to them and we could applaud at the end. So stand up, whoever has received a scholarship. Our recipients are Riley Asp from Knight High School, Lauren G. from Temple City High School, Wendy Lee, Woodrow Wilson Senior High School, Alana Matthews, Marymount High School, Amaya Mays, Pacifica Christian High School, Kevin Sebastian, Simi Valley High School, Lucas St. Pierre, San Pedro High School, Kenneth Hune, Cal State University, Long Beach. These inspiring young students represent future of LA, and Area Chamber is so proud to recognize them. A big round of applause for all of them. Great to see that. So it is my pleasure now to welcome our first guest, A.G. Spanos. You recognize the name. He serves as the 2023 board chair of the LA Chamber. Mr. Spanos is the president of business operations for the Los Angeles Chargers. Please welcome A.G. Spanos.
Thank you, David. Good morning, and welcome to the Chamber celebration of World Trade Week Southern California kickoff. I'm in awe of the Chamber's long-standing work in recognizing the importance of global trade. For 97 years, World Trade Week has been a hallmark of the LA Chamber's work, all in an effort to strengthen global trade. And we have made a difference. Los Angeles is recognized as a region with the power and influence to drive a global economy. I'd like to thank the World Trade Week Committee for their hard work in making today's event a success. I would like to give special thanks and recognition to Fran Inman, the chair of this year's conference. Fran brings her expertise from the goods movement sector, working on the system of systems that our global supply chain represents. Thank you, Fran. I'm also very excited to congratulate all of our award recipients that will be recognized this morning, especially Jean Soroka, Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles. Jean will be honored with the Samuel T. Olafson Award. As for my new role, I'm excited to serve as the 2023 board chair for the LA Area Chamber and to see this chamber thrive. I really want to thank the staff led by Maria Salinas, who do an outstanding job to make sure the chamber meets its goals. This year, the chamber celebrates 135 years of business leadership. We celebrated the chamber by stating the obvious. The future is here. LA is ground zero for innovation. The impossible becomes possible here. Whether it be technology, sports, entertainment, hospitality, healthcare, consumer goods, and on and on and on. And while individual companies are leading the way in innovation in their respective fields, it's the Chamber's job to pool businesses' collective resources to tackle challenges facing our region like housing, workforce development, and strengthening the supply chain. Today's event is incredibly important to Los Angeles. We must ensure our region remains competitive, and building a future-ready supply chain is a priority for the Chamber. Thank you for being here and being part of the community to foster global trade. Together, we can build a future-ready supply chain.
Thank you, Mr. Spanos, and we appreciate your service and your leadership. I'd like to introduce Maria Salinas, President and CEO of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. Maria took the helm of the Chamber in 2018 and has embraced the Chamber's vision of thriving region for all. Under her leadership, the Chamber helped businesses of all sizes navigate the pandemic and is recognized as one of the nation's premier business organizations. Ms. Salinas represents the Chamber not only here in Los Angeles, but statewide and nationally. So please welcome Maria Salinas.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. And welcome, everyone. It's so great to see all of you here this morning. Welcome to this year's World Trade Week Conference. We're excited. I hope you are too. Thank you for joining us this morning and for supporting the Chamber's work in championing global trade in our region. I, too, would like to thank our amazing World Trade Week Committee. Let's give them a round of applause. Fran Inman, our chair of our committee, for her steadfast leadership. Fran Inman, let's give her a round of applause. The work of the Chamber is deep and broad when it comes to global trade and the international community. This is of paramount importance to the work that we do every day. A key pillar of our work lies in our commitment to global trade, to strengthening systems, and in creating pathways for all businesses to access global markets. Los Angeles is an international gateway for innovation. So investments is key in our region when it comes to our supply chain to ensure we have that economic competitiveness. Today's program will be focused on our supply chain and on building a future-ready supply chain. Let this be the first of many discussions on this topic. We have to continue this dialogue that's going to start here to ensure that our policymakers and businesses are working collaboratively to build resilient systems that will keep this region globally competitive. So thank you all for being here and supporting the great work of the Chamber when it comes to global trade. Thank you all. And I also want to take the time to thank our sponsors. You know that we could not do this work without the support of our sponsors. We have our gold sponsors here today, Majestic Realty, the Port of Los Angeles, the Port of Long Beach. Let's give them a round of applause. Our silver sponsors, Alba Wheels Up, Bobrick Washroom Equipment, the Consulate General of Mexico in Los Angeles, Crowell and Mooring, Los Angeles World Airports, Watson Land Company, Houston Terminals. Let's give them a round of applause. And to our bronze sponsors, let me pass it over to our announcer.
Our bronze sponsors: Aeromexico, Arendt Fox Schiff, Bank of America, Citizen Watch America, Comerica Bank, Coppersmith Global Logistics, District Export Council of Southern California, FCL Logistics and Price Transfer, FedEx Logistics, Ixtapa Zihuatanejo Convention and Visitors Bureau, Japan Airlines, Los Angeles County Supervisor Catherine Barger, Los Angeles Tourism and Convention Board, Loyola Marymount University Center for International Business Education, Riverside County Office of Economic Development, Roanoke Insurance Group Incorporated, Swift Docs, United Airlines, USC Gould School of Law for Transnational Law and Business.
Please join me in giving all of our sponsors a big round of applause. I'd like to also recognize the elected officials who are here with us today. You will hear from Congresswoman Judy Chu, Congresswoman Sydney Kamlager Dove. Let's give them a round of applause, joining us from the federal government. We also have with us the Deputy Mayor of Business and Economic Development, Rachel Freeman. Welcome to her first World Trade Week, I believe. Deputy Mayor of International Affairs, Aaron Bromagin. Welcome as well. I know they're here on behalf of Mayor Karen Bass, and you will hear from Aaron shortly. I'd also like to welcome LA Board of Education, LAUSD Vice President Scott Schmerlism, who is here with us today. So welcome to our elected officials that have joined us for this very important conversation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Next, we have some very special remarks from Ambassador Katherine Tai, U.S. Trade Representative on the President's Cabinet. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here with us today, but she sent her remarks via video, and here she is.
Hello, everyone. I'm Katherine Tai, the U.S. Trade Representative. Thanks for inviting me to speak during the 97th World Trade Week. I was reminded that this conference was started almost a century ago in 1926. That summer, a 2,400-mile stretch of road connecting Los Angeles and Chicago was designated as Route 66. Transportation completely changed how the world traded, and the Los Angeles region has served as a major gateway to the economic growth we've witnessed over the last several decades. But a lot has changed since 1926. We saw increased production and cheaper goods, but we also saw growing inequality, vulnerable supply chains, and workers and communities displaced and left behind. The pandemic and Russia's brutal war against Ukraine have only highlighted these shortcomings. They've disrupted critical supply chains and intensified inflationary pressures around the world. And that's why the Biden administration has been laser-focused on writing a new story on trade, one that addresses today's pressing issues that directly impact everyday people, one that delivers real opportunities for working communities and middle-class families, and one that advances our global priorities. These values are at the heart of everything we do, and we've been very busy implementing this vision with our partners and allies. We are negotiating an historic agreement with 12 other countries in the Indo-Pacific. We launched a new trade agreement with 11 countries in the Western Hemisphere, and we are deepening our economic relationship with the European Union. And we've also kicked off new initiatives with Taiwan and Kenya. Throughout all of these discussions, we're focused on things that can help our businesses compete and succeed, like strengthening our supply chains to be more resilient against unexpected shocks. We're also simplifying customs procedures to make it easier to move American products around the world. Not only that, we're empowering our workers and discussing ways to eradicate forced labor from our global supply chains. The private sector is an important part of realizing this vision. Our administration is committed to design policies that reflect a wide range of voices from across the American economy. And that means bringing more people to the table and incorporating their priorities into our work, especially those from communities that have been historically left out of the policymaking process. This is a critical part of our trade agenda, and USTR will continue to work to embed fairness and equity into our economic ecosystem. This is truly a partnership. The Chamber has anchored economic activity throughout Greater Los Angeles area for over a century. The challenges we face today are real, but I am confident that together we can and will overcome them and seize tomorrow's opportunities. To bring about sustainable and inclusive growth, to empower our workers and businesses to compete on the world stage, and to maintain Southern California's status as a global hub for international commerce and trade. I'm sure that many of the business and civic leaders attending the conference share this vision, and I am grateful to have you as our partners. Thank you for your dedication, and I wish you all a successful World Trade Week.
Our thanks to Katherine Tai. And now you've been such a great audience. We're going to give you 5 minutes to enjoy your breakfast and talk to each other. We'll be right back with more speakers.
It feels like I don't know you anymore. I don't understand why you're so cold to me. With every breath you breathe, I see there's something going on. I don't understand why you're so cold. Are we taking time or time out? I can't take the in-between. Asking me for space here in my house. You don't know how to with me. Acting like we're not together. After everything that we've been through. Sleeping up under the covers. How am I so far away from you, distant? When we're kissing, feel so different. Baby, tell me, how did you get so cold enough to chill my bones? It feels like I don't know you anymore. I don't understand why you're so cold to me. With every breath you breathe, I see there's something going on. I don't understand why you're so cold, yeah. Whoa, yeah. Whoa, yeah. I don't understand why you're so cold. What you holding on for? If you wanna leave, just leave. Why you wanna bite your tongue for? The silence is killing me. Acting like we're not together. If you don't want this, then what's the use? Sleeping up under the covers. How am I so far away from you, distant? When we're kissing, it feels so different. Baby, tell me, how did you get so cold enough to chill my bones? It feels like I don't know you
never thought that you was like this. I took the tag off and made you priceless. I just spent $500,000 on a chandelier. Now you try and cut me off like a light switch. Try and stay in our league. Saying that you need some time to breathe. Thinking that I'm sleeping on the 4-letter word, but the 4-letter word don't sleep. We going two separate ways. You ain't been acting the same. You gotta go, bro. Where your heart used to be, you go dig every day. I switched the 4 door to the 2 door, cause I can't let my driver hear what you say. Can I try to give you space?
Baby, tell me, how did you get so cold enough to chill my bones? It feels like I don't know you anymore. I don't understand why you're so cold to me. With every breath you breathe, I see there's something going on. I don't understand why you're so cold. So I don't understand why you're so I don't understand why you're so cold.
We are searchlights we can see in the dark. We are rockets pointed up at the stars. We are billions of beautiful hearts. And you sold us down the river too far. What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? What about love? What about trust? What about us? We are problems that want to be solved. We are children that need to be loved. We were willing, we came when you called. But man, you fooled us. Enough is enough. Oh, what about us? What about all the times you said you had the answer? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? Oh, what about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? Oh, what about love? What about trust? What about us? What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? What about love?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back your host, David Ono.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your breakfast. We're going to carry on with our program today. Now I have the pleasure of introducing you to a very special guest. Congresswoman Judy Chu was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2009 and represents the 28th Congressional District, which includes Pasadena and the West San Gabriel Valley. Representative Chu currently serves on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee and the House Small Business Committee. Please welcome Congresswoman Chu.
Hello, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu from the San Gabriel Valley, and I'm so pleased to join you at the 97th Southern California World Trade Week. Trade is what connects us to the rest of the world, and Southern California is where that connection takes place. Our ports, airports, railways, and roads move billions of dollars of commerce each year and support hundreds of thousands of jobs in our communities. And my district, in the San Gabriel Valley, is the principal route for goods moving from Southern California to the rest of the country. These connections show the promise of international trade by making our local businesses and workers stronger and delivering benefits across our region and beyond. In Congress, I serve on the House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over our country's trade policy. We consider our committee to be very powerful because of that, and we have a responsibility to ensure that our trade agreements and trade relationships provide benefits to American workers, companies, and consumers while demanding high enforceable standards of our partners. We take great pride in how we were able to negotiate the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or the USMCA. Working across the aisle, we were able to set a new example for trade in the 21st century economy, one where we strengthen our relationship with our international partners, all while establishing new standards for labor and environmental protection that put U.S. companies and workers on a level playing field and make our supply chains stronger and more durable. Today, our country is working to deepen trade relationships in the Indo-Pacific and beyond, and we know that we all need to work together to deliver on that promise of a trade policy that works for everyone. Progress is made possible when Congress works with stakeholders like the LA Chamber and with the businesses participating here and in World Trade Week events across Southern California. The world economy is changing, but because of this incredible network, I know that Los Angeles will continue to be a global hub for international trade. So thank you for inviting me here today, and I look forward to working together to build a stronger, more resilient Southern California economy through trade. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Chu, and thank you for all you do. Next, we have another special guest. Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager Dove is a freshman Congress member representing California's 37th Congressional District. She serves on the House Committees on Foreign Affairs and Natural Resources. Previously, she was a member of the Assembly of the State of California and served as chair for the Los Angeles County Delegation. Please welcome Congresswoman Kamlager Dove.
I am Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager Dove, and I represent California's 37th District here in the great Los Angeles. I am so honored to be here with you today as one of your speakers alongside Congresswoman Judy Chu, Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis, and Ambassador Tai to celebrate Los Angeles's role as part of the global trade community. The economy in Los Angeles is a robust one that offers diverse and rich partnerships domestically and abroad. I want to emphasize a standard that the LA Area Chamber of Commerce has upheld for 125 years, being bold in business, pushing boundaries and finding ways to develop industries here at home. So I thank the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce for inviting me here today to recognize the hundreds of businesses and leaders working to create real opportunities for trade right here in Southern California. That's you. You should give yourselves a round of applause. Specifically, I want to thank and applaud the work of Maria Salinas, President and CEO of the Chamber. Thank you for your continued guidance in making Los Angeles a key hub for exports and foreign investments. I also want to thank Ken Wingrad, the Vice President of Global Trade and Foreign Investment Initiative, for putting this event together to celebrate incredible innovators in the thriving Los Angeles economy. Lastly, give Ken a round of applause too. And lastly, thank you, Fran Inman, VP of Majestic Realty Company and Chair for World Trade Week, for continuing to support the tremendous work the Chamber does to strengthen and expand partnerships around Los Angeles. I want to take a moment to honor the great work of Gene Soroka as he receives the Lifetime Achievement Award today. His work as the Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles has been transformative for our city, and it is fitting that he receives this distinguished honor today. The Port of Los Angeles is the busiest container port in North America, and 1 in 9 regional jobs in LA are tied to port trade. During the pandemic, Gene's leadership was instrumental in ensuring that Angelenos were able to access essential goods. And you know we like to buy our stuff here in Los Angeles. I know I speak for many when I say thank you for your continued guidance and work for the people of Los Angeles and for the economies of Los Angeles. The prosperity of Los Angeles depends on robust trade relationships. As a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, this remains top of mind for me as we examine our international ties around the world. International trade is key to ensuring resilient supply chains that contribute to the health and welfare of our communities. In the aftermath of the pandemic, our economy was devastated, and too many families felt the impact of disrupted supply chains. That is why Democrats in Congress worked to pass the CHIPS and Science Act to strengthen supply chains, revitalize domestic manufacturing, and create new jobs as a result. We must continue to build on this historic work and find pathways to secure strong supply chains for our future. I look forward to working with trade advocates and my colleagues in Congress to promote the health of international trade and the economy in Los Angeles and across the country. Thank you again for allowing me to speak to you this morning. Keep up the amazing, innovative work that you are doing to promote inclusive and diverse businesses that contribute to the prosperity of Los Angeles. Enjoy the rest of today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Next, we have Erin Bromagem, the Deputy Mayor of International Affairs for Mayor Karen Bass's administration. She leads an experienced team responsible for international trade and investment, city diplomacy, consular affairs, international engagement, protocol, and major international events. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Mayor Bromagem.
Good morning. On behalf of Mayor Karen Bass, it's my pleasure to join this kickoff of the 97th Annual World Trade Week. I want to thank Maria Salinas for her leadership and the Chamber's commitment to lock arms with Mayor Bass as we address LA's challenges and grow our opportunities. I want to acknowledge my colleague, our Deputy Mayor of Business and Economic Development, Rachel Freeman. And I want to thank my colleague, our Director of International Trade and Investment, Christine Peterson. And I'd also like to recognize everyone in this room that helps make Los Angeles the premier international gateway to the world. You help make LA a $1 trillion economy, the 3rd largest urban economy in the world. You make LA the 3rd largest metro goods exporter in the country, And you are the reason why LA is rebounding resoundingly, reaching $59 billion in goods exports post-pandemic, a 17% year-on-year increase. Over the past several years, the COVID pandemic and other supply chain disruptions did what World Trade Week has done for years. It put a spotlight on the importance of LA to the global trade economy. And now that World Trade Week is moving beyond what we already know and bringing together LA's diverse trade community and the brightest minds to envision how international trade can support a more competitive, more resilient, more sustainable, and more equitable Los Angeles. The Mayor's Office is proud to be a partner in this work. With the LA Chamber and others, we help build LA's global reputation and international relationships. And we bring the city's resources to bear to support the port with green shipping corridors and LAX with flight development to new destinations, to guide LA's exporters to information and services available from federal, state, and local partners, to create networking opportunities and international partnerships that open doors to markets on every continent, and to attract job-creating foreign direct investment to every neighborhood in LA. I would be remiss not to highlight the important contributions of two of the city's proprietary departments, the Port of LA and Los Angeles World Airports. The Port of LA has remained the #1 port in the Western Hemisphere for 23 straight years, all while leading with the Port of Long Beach on reducing emissions and improving air quality for our region. And LAX is in the midst of a $30 billion capital improvement program that will create a world-class experience for travelers and cargo. It will transform how the world is introduced to our city when they arrive for the 2026 FIFA World Cup and the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Now, on behalf of Mayor Bass, it is my pleasure to congratulate the LA Chamber of Commerce and the entire World Trade Week Committee on today's event, and to acknowledge an individual who's been fiercely dedicated to organizing an insightful program for you today. Fran Inman, Senior Vice President of Majestic Realty and Chair of the 2023 World Trade Week Committee. I think I'm going to be joined by them on stage now. I'm excited to share this proclamation from the city with Fran. Thank you so much. Thank you. On behalf of the mayor? Yes, thank you so much. Do you want to get some pictures? Over here? We're going to join you here. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Now I'd like to formally introduce the chair of the 2023 World Trade Week Committee. Fran Inman is a Senior Vice President for Majestic Realty. She's been a part of their leadership team for more than 2 decades and has served as the founding president of the Majestic Realty Foundation. She's a member of the Chamber Board and a former board chair. She previously served on the California Transportation Commission. She served on the National Freight Advisory Committee, which reports directly to the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, and on the California Freight Efficiency Task Force. Please welcome Fran Inman.
Wow, good morning. Great to be here. So with that intro, my husband would tell you it's because I like to shop, so we know that every day is a freight day. So anyway, great to be here. First of all, I just want to say thank you. It really does take a village, so thank you to the Chamber staff, to our World Trade Advisory Council. We've worked hard for this event and just really delighted that we have General Lyons is going to speak to you a little later. And I have to tell you, hats off to the Biden administration. I've been working in this sector for a couple of decades now, and I have never seen the commitment to really leaning in and the focus on our system of systems, as the General is going to talk to you a little later. But great to be here, and want to add my congratulations to the honorees, my good buddy, one I'm going to call him out, Gene Soroka. Gene and I have been in the trenches together for a number of years, and really just want to congratulate Gene on his winning the Stanley T. Olafson Award today. So let's get on with the show. Thank you to Mayor Bass for recognizing our work here, and thank you all for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Fran. Your leadership for this year's World Trade Week has been instrumental. She does so much hard work, and so does the whole team here, so congratulations to them. Now we have a few recognitions and announcements. First, let me remind you about the digital auction happening right now. All of the bidding is being hosted online, and you could participate via your phone. Hopefully you've dropped by there. They made it very simple. Be sure to take a look at all the great items up for bid by scanning the QR code located on the table number card. Also, in the room right next door, you can see the great products and packages in person. That would be right over here. The silent auction will be closing at noon today, so you have a little bit of time. And if it closes at noon, put your bids in at the last second. Make sure you bid high, because it goes to a great cause. Now I'd like to recognize a special guest that we have with us today. Los Angeles is truly a global city with more than 100 consulate generals and trade offices, and this makes Southern California the third largest home to diplomats and consular corps in the United States after Washington, D.C. and New York City. So I'd like to take a moment to recognize countries being represented by consul generals and trade officers. If you are representing one of these countries today, please stand and be recognized. Stand up and don't be shy. We'd love to give them all a round of applause for the hard work that they do. I know there's a few people standing out there. Thank you so much. Thank you for standing and being recognized, and also thank you for all that you do. I'd also like to recognize our previous Stanley T. Olafson honorees. If you have received Stanley T. Olafson Award, please stand and be recognized. This is a very big deal, and we represent one each year, and you've done great work. Thank you so much, and congratulations to you again. And that brings us to our awards presentation for today. I'd like to invite Maria Salinas, Fran Inman, and Julie Ann Hennessy to present today's awards. Please welcome them.
Thank you, David. Our first annual award is the Export Achievement Award, which honors local companies which have demonstrated success in exporting or have provided export services. This year, we have 3 incredible winners from throughout the Los Angeles region. Please help me recognize Able Industrial Products. Accepting on their behalf is CEO Gilbert Martinez. TIGM, accepting on their behalf is President Bradley L. Reed. Williams Furnace Company, accepting on their behalf is President and General Manager Thin Poe. One more applause to congratulate them. Thank you all very much. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the next award, the Chamber Innovator in Trade Awards. This award recognizes companies who have applied or developed innovative products or services to improve or transform processes and procedures to increase international trade and to enhance global competitiveness. This year, it is my pleasure to recognize Produce Pay. Accepting on their behalf is Senior Vice President of Portfolio Management, Ana Sofia Canes and Roswi. Excuse me, my apologies. Our second recipient is Roswi. Accepting on their behalf is founder and CEO Joseph Rudkwana. See if I said that right. My apologies if I got that backwards, but let's take a picture anyway.
So congratulations to our winners so far. To present our final award this morning, please join me in welcoming immediate past chair of the LA Area Chamber Board and chairman and CEO of Bobrick Washroom Equipment, Mr. Mark Lockheim.
Thank you, David. Now it's time to recognize our final honoree. Since 1936, the Stanley T. Olofson Bronze Plaque has been presented to a member of the international trade community whose outstanding dedication, efforts, and achievement in the field have advanced trade in the Southern California region. Stanley T. Olofson began his career at the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce 100 years ago in 1923 as manager of International Trade Department, where he became a leader in promoting trade and its benefits to our regional economy. It was Olofson who in 1926 organized the first World Trade Week to create community awareness of the important role international trade played in economic growth and opportunity. Olofson would later receive the Los Angeles Foreign Trade Week Award, and 50 years later, in 1976, the chairman of World Trade Week, Dick Chostak, proposed naming the plaque after Ostaf in commemoration of the creator of World Trade Week. This is the Chamber's most prestigious award, and we are honored to recognize this year's recipient. Gene Soroka is more than a respected executive. He's a leader eager to go the extra mile to bring economic success to our vast region. Throughout his nearly 10 years at the Port of Los Angeles, Gene has shown he is willing to work with any stakeholder involved with the port. No matter if you're a union worker, government official, small business, or global corporation, Gene is willing to sit down to find a fair solution to any problem. Under his stewardship, the Port of Los Angeles has continued its legacy as the #1 port for containerized cargo in the Americas. Together with the Port of Los Angeles, the San Pedro Bay ports are the nation's largest and most vital gateway for seaborne trade. And the ocean supply chain that runs through our ports facilitates 1 in 9 jobs across the 5-county Southern California region. Gene is a sought-out leader, an authority in global logistics and supply chain management. During his tenure at the Port of Los Angeles, he has been named the 2020 Executive of the Year by Supply Chain Dive, was the 2021 recipient of the Container Shipping Industry's coveted Connie Award, received the Inland Empire Economic Partnership Lifetime Achievement Award, and has been named one of the most influential people in Los Angeles by the Los Angeles Business Journal. Today, we are honored to recognize Gene Soroka as this year's Stanley T. Olofson Award honoree.
Thank you, Mark and AG. Wow, I'm truly moved by this honor and grateful to Maria Salinas and the entire Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce for this great recognition. No one ever wins this award alone. Today, I share this with so many friends, family, educators. It's also made possible by our employees and harbor commissioners at the port, customers and tenants, the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, and of course, the immediate past and present mayors of Los Angeles. I stand on the shoulders of so many who have received this honor before me. Two of them, in particular, make this even more special for me. Mickey Kantor, the former U.S. Secretary of Commerce and U.S. Trade Representative, continues to be a mentor. And Vilma Martinez, the former U.S. Ambassador to Argentina and Harbor Commission President, was a guide and inspiration when I was just learning the ropes at the Port of L.A. There are people who still mean so much to me, talk to them on a regular basis, and I find it a pure honor to join them here today. Having been in international trade my entire career and living overseas in numerous countries, I've had a front row seat to experience and enjoy cultural diversity on so many levels. This award is presented each year to a single individual, but in a much larger sense, it is given in recognition to the spirit of our city. That spirit is the reason that we're the world's third largest municipal economy after Tokyo and New York. It's the spirit of diversity of 400 different neighborhoods, 224 dialects spoken here. The things we do in all those neighborhoods and all those languages just don't make a difference locally, but they make a difference around the world. In those many languages is an institutional knowledge we share in how to get things done. From Hollywood to California-inspired car and clothing design, to the largest manufacturing market in the United States, and of course, the nation's busiest and most critical gateway to global trade, our San Pedro Bay ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. It's been said that Los Angeles is the future, only sooner. The ideas and innovations that generations of Angelenos have created here have transformed the world. At the port, we're so proud of our part in that transformation. And it's a badge of honor that the city of Los Angeles has had the staunch support of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce dating back even beyond our inception as a municipal port 116 years ago. One last thought. As we share together here this morning, we have a responsibility to the past, of course, to the present, as we all know, but our greatest responsibility is to the future. As we look to the future, let's bear in mind that the challenge for leadership all of us in this room today is to shake things up, to look at what we built and to have the courage to admit we have more work to do, and to lean forward into a future that's better and brighter than any one of us could have ever imagined. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the spirit of Los Angeles. And on behalf of the 840 women and men of the Los Angeles Harbor Department, I proudly accept this honor today. Thank you.
Congratulations, Gene. You've done an incredible job evolving our ports to build a future-ready supply chain, and we look forward to seeing what is in store for us next. Now, I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker for today's program. General Stephen R. Lyons is a retired Army officer who currently serves as the Port and Supply Chain Envoy to the White House Supply Chain Disrupts Task Force. General Lyons served 38 years in the Army, where he ultimately was named 13th Commander of U.S. Transportation Command, or TRANSCOM. He began his military career during the Cold War in Germany. He led 1,200 soldiers in the 2003 efforts to liberate Baghdad. Next, he spent 40 months deployed in support of Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. And in 2021, he led the mobility operations that enabled the historic evacuation of over 124,000 Afghans from Kabul International Airport. Now, in his role in the Biden administration, he works across a broad set of private and public stakeholders to address pandemic-induced disruptions and restore supply chain speed and reliability while lowering consumer costs. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome General Lyons.
Well, thank you very much. It is wonderful to be here in the city of Los Angeles, and it's great to see so many business leaders and so many civic leaders. And congratulations to my good friend Gene Soroka, and as a matter of fact, all the awardees. How about a round of applause for the great awardees out here? And a special thanks to the leadership here in the LA Chamber of Commerce. You know, when you think back to all the way back to 1926, they had the foresight, right, to recognize the importance of global trade to our economic prosperity and our national security. So it's fitting today that I'm here in Los Angeles, where San Pedro Bay complex is America's greatest gateway to the world, and where President Biden announced me as the envoy a year ago. You know that the United States is the world's largest economy. Over $5 trillion in imports and exports. And there's no denying that trade is critical to America's prosperity, fueling economic growth, supporting good jobs at home, raising living standards, and helping Americans provide for their families with affordable goods and services. International trade is the lifeblood to the world economy. Now, it's been a rough few years for trade and supply chains. And as I begin, I want to acknowledge the tremendous efforts of all our essential supply chain workers throughout the pandemic for fighting through the chaos to keep our supply chains and economy moving. I think it bears reminding ourselves that in the early days of the pandemic, when we had no PPE, we had no test kits, we had no vaccines, transport and logistics workers never faltered. The vast majority didn't have the luxury to work remotely. Now, we can all recall 2020 and how disruptive the pandemic was on global economic activity to every facet of our lives. Normal patterns of life ceased with stay-at-home lockdowns, travel bans, and service sector shutdowns. We were losing our loved ones at an alarming rate. We faced an immediate recession. And industry began withdrawing capacity, began canceling orders in response to an expected imminent decline in demand. And then, surprising for all of us, unforecasted orders for goods skyrocketed. None of us anticipated the historic surge in consumer demand, fueled by stimulus, fueled by service sector closure, and idle time at home. Industry raced to meet demand, thus creating a bit of a bullwhip of unprecedented order volumes, resulting in profound impacts for the goods movement sector. As this audience knows, the goods movement enterprise is an extremely complex ecosystem of thousands of independent and interdependent stakeholders driven by free market incentives. And it takes time. It takes administrative and logistic lead time for industry to respond. By late 2021, there were over 100 ships lined up outside Southern California carrying record volumes of freight to fulfill those record volumes of orders. The iconic images of vessels awaiting offload were an indicator of the congestion that would permeate supply chains across the country, extending well beyond the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach. The study of movement flows, better known as the queuing theory or Little's Law, tells us that when a node in a supply chain approaches max capacity, backups begin to grow at a nonlinear rate. The severe congestion in the goods movement chain was a result of demand shock superimposed on a relatively lean supply chain. And why are supply chains so lean? Because, as you know, they're very, very expensive. For a wide variety of reasons, pandemic-related, the market wasn't responding as we knew it. We faced severe inflationary pressures from a multitude of factors, and consumers were losing confidence rapidly. In addition to energy prices, the war in Ukraine, monetary and fiscal policy, wages, we recognize also that transportation-related congestion was contributing to inflation. The most obvious way transportation congestion drove inflation is through increased freight rates. But more impactful than the rising freight rates was the chaotic and unpredictable nature of supply chains. Inventory managers, frustrated, trying to satisfy their customers, found themselves in the unenviable position of trying to compensate for an unpredictable delivery time, which of course resulted in additional orders, excess inventory that compounded congestion, and increased overall costs as freight shifted to premium modes of transportation at 10 times the cost. C-suite executives told me early in my tenure that supply chain-related disruptions were costing them about 6 to 8% of their bottom line. Now, those are big numbers, but they said worse was a reputational loss. Unfortunately, given the complexity of the supply chain ecosystem, there were no quick fixes to the gridlock created by the bottlenecks. Adding more ships doesn't get them unloaded faster. Capital investments in terminals and warehousing, distribution centers takes years to plan and build. Restoring fluidity takes time and only occurs when supply and demand are brought back into balance. And this occurred in late of 2022, largely driven by a softer market that provided opportunity to catch up and some breathing space. Now, the good news here in 2023, it's a much better year to talk about supply chains. The pandemic-induced supply chain congestion is behind us. Today, shippers report that fluidity is restored in the goods movement chain and metrics are trending positive. Cost and delivery times, in many cases, have returned to pre-pandemic levels. You may recall last month Paul Berger of the Wall Street Journal reporting, echoing industry's assessments during their quarterly earnings reports, that supply chains were actually a bright spot. So we're in much better shape today than we were. But we must be mindful of the new challenge and the effect of too little freight, which leads carriers and supply chain operators to reduce capacity. It's the nature of this cyclic industry. Now, does this mean that here in 2023, that all the underlying issues are fixed or resolved? Well, absolutely not. So in the chaos of supply chain disruptions, we recognize several blind spots. Supply chains previously had been assumed, kind of like oxygen. You don't think much about it if you don't have it. We learned just how vital global trade and fluid supply chains are to every aspect of the economy and the consumer. We accentuated our underinvestment in infrastructure that's so critical to future economic prosperity. We exposed national security vulnerabilities in our procurement sourcing strategies. We realized that it's too late to develop supply chain health metrics when you're in the middle of a crisis. And time and again, we observed the important differentiation between managers and leaders that would lead in the crisis. You see, life is all about people. Often, not always, but often managers are eager to sacrifice their people to make their bottom line. Leaders are different. Leaders recognize that their legacy is defined by the people that follow, and they are willing to sacrifice themselves so their teammates can succeed. Leaders make the world a better place. And I often like to say the number one rule of leadership is just to love the people you lead. And for those of you that are parents, you can imagine that, and you can imagine what a better world we would be in. So in that context, though, I want to compliment your two port directors here in Southern California, Gene Soroka and Mario Cordero, whose leadership was critical to our national collaboration and recovery efforts from the day one, from very early on. And it took leadership at the top. I'm extremely proud of the Biden-Harris administration's early actions to understand and mitigate consumer doubt and inflationary pressures. Early recognition of the significance of supply chains have on economic activity led to several decisive actions. The first executive order in February of 21, the establishment of the Supply Chain Disruption Task Force later that year in the summer, the appointment of the first supply envoy, John Pocari, my predecessor. We witnessed the passage of signature legislation like the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Ocean Reform Shipping Act, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. Things like the Transportation Action Plan helped facilitate the creation of 1 million new jobs in the transportation and warehousing sectors. And the administration's leadership also facilitated resolution of a 3-year rail labor dispute. And by doing so, since I worked the interagency risk assessment on this, prevented what would have been a national economic disaster. These efforts at the national level will continue to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and sustainability, and support your initiatives here in LA of the nation's supply chains for decades to come. And our work continues. Through the $1.2 trillion implementation of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, we're making crucial investments in our nation's infrastructure, including ports, highways, roads, airports, and bridges, which will set up successful conditions for our kids and for our grandkids. The Freight Logistics Optimization Workflow, better known as FLOW, as the Secretary was at yesterday, it's a grassroots initiative led by industry and facilitated by DOT to help develop a macroeconomic health index for the national goods movement enterprise. And there are a multitude of transformational efforts underway to mitigate harmful carbon emissions that will ensure we have sustainable supply chains in the future. Work is underway, very important work is underway, by the way, by the Department of Commerce and others to further identify procurement sourcing vulnerabilities, like the microprocessing chips, that could be consequential to national security. Our economic security is national security, and America is safer when important technology and essential products are produced here in the United States or in countries of like-minded partners. And we must be ever mindful that our future security and prosperity are being challenged today by authoritarian regimes that engage in illegal trade practices, steal intellectual property, coerce their neighbors in an attempt to undermine long-standing international order predicated on free markets and democratic values. So today's celebration here in LA is an exciting time for global trade with abundant opportunities to innovate and lead change, to ensure the United States of America maintains its competitive advantage in an ever-changing world. I'll close with this. I came to the problem set as a nonpartisan player whose only task was to collaborate across a diverse set of stakeholders aimed at restoring consumer confidence and lowering prices. In doing so, I had the privilege of engaging with countless talented, hardworking supply chain workers at every echelon. They weren't seeking fame nor fanfare. They didn't set out to break records by handling historic volumes of freight, but they did. They weren't in it to make history, but they did. They were just hardworking Americans dedicated to getting their job done despite daunting conditions. And their efforts kept our economy running in crisis when our country needed them most. Many people would look at this challenge and just say, too hard. Our supply chain workers don't know the meaning of those words. I'd like a round of applause for our great supply chain workforce that worked so hard during the pandemic. Our nation does owe a great debt of gratitude to our supply chain workers. I would ask for you just to go and reach out to a supply chain worker when you have an opportunity and express two very simple but powerful words, and that is thank you. Thank them for what they've done. It's a powerful message, particularly coming from you. Well, thank you again for the hospitality. More importantly, for your leadership that will prove critical to the future of American prosperity. May God bless you in a way that you're able to bless others, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Wonderful speech. Thank you, General Lyons. So next we have an exciting panel ahead of us with distinguished guests from the global trade industry in the Los Angeles region. Our moderator for this discussion is our World Trade Week Chair and Senior Vice President at Majestic Realty, Fran Inman. Our first panelist is Paul Granillo. He has served as President and CEO of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership since 2010. And during this time in charge, the Inland Empire Economic Partnership has become one of the most recognized and active regional organizations working to build a stronger regional economy. Our next panelist is Vince Iacopella, Executive Vice President of Alba Wheels Up. Vince has more than 30 years of experience in managing global customer relationships and trade. He is the 2020 Stanley T. Olofsson recipient. And our third panelist is Rachel Michelin, who serves as President of California Retailers Association. In her role, she represents the voice for the retail industry in California's public policy arena and regulatory bodies statewide. Our next panelist is Chris Shimoda. Chris serves as Senior Vice President for the California Trucking Association. He oversees the legislative, political, regulatory, and public affairs work for the nation's largest statewide trade association. And our final panelist, Lupe C. Valdez. Lupe is the Senior Director of Public Affairs for Union Pacific Railroad, is a member of the San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership, and is Chairwoman of the Executive Board of Directors for the Inland Empire Economic Partnership. Please welcome Fran and all of our panelists. Thank you very much. Take it away.
Thank you. Okay, guys, let's have some fun this morning. So here we go. We're just going to have a little fireside chat. Our panelists here today represent the various sectors in our system of systems, our endocrine system, as I like to call it, and also happen to be good friends of Fran's. So thank you all for being here today. So let's talk about where we are. The General mentioned it's been crazy, crazy, crazy 3 years. I would add to that it was a little bit crazy even before that when we had the tariffs or the threat of tariffs, and we kind of got a little bit out of alignment. I used to say we needed a chiropractor to help us all with our posture in those days, but, and then who knows what happened after that. I have vivid memories of those early days with my buddy Gene Soroka texting me at wee hours of the day and night, and all of his team, whether it was figuring out how we're going to make our own antibacterial. Gene and David, I remember you all hitting every Home Depot to make sure that we could have our workers safe, and then working with our trucking community. Chris and I had lots of conversations about some of the unintended consequences, and really just want to add my thanks to the essential team of the goods movement sector, because we kept going and kept moving. So with that, let's start talking a little bit about where we are today. Maybe throw in a little bit about what we thought and where we're going next. So I'll ask each of the panelists to introduce yourselves, briefly describe your role with your entity, and then we'll just have a good visit about where we might be going next. So with that, Vince, since you're down dealing at a touch point there, and remember you've got Rachel next to you, those beneficial cargo owners, so let's be a little careful.
Keeps us in line.
I know, it does.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here in this environment. We've been waiting to talk about this for years, actually. So it's really a privilege and honor to be here and among so many friends and stakeholders. You know, the theme of this is obviously market share, and the tendency there is to focus on a challenge-driven discussion. So we'll probably do that in the first question, but I wanted to use this opener about the things that were great about this port 35 years ago when I came here. We are, and then I will get into some of the challenges, but you know, we are the nexus between Asia markets and Latin American markets. That's not going to change where we are geographically. The geopolitical importance of the city it plays a huge role in global trade. That nexus between Asia and northern Mexico and Latin America is not going away. We are the leading, our ports and our private sector partners are the leading investors in digitalized trade, in advanced data from Manifest, and sharing data in the ports. We're the greenest ports in North America by investment, and I'm proud to come from a region where that's important. And there's a lot of good stuff for this port. There's over 300 customs brokers, trade attorneys, third-party logistics warehouses in the Moreno Valley, Eastern LA, Imperial Valley, all the way down to the 5 counties to the southern border. None of that's going away, but yet we are losing market share, right? And that's why we're here today to talk. I'll save, obviously, might as well do it now for 2 seconds. Obviously, going to 21 and 22, at Albert Wheels Up, being customs broker and freight forwarder, we talk to the BCOs, the beneficial cargo owners, that make the decision where these containers go. So we hear why they make different decisions from this market. And obviously 21 and 22, unbudgeted demurrage, unbudgeted detention, dwell times, all of that well-publicized stuff was a factor. I think today, the absence of a labor contract for the longshore creates risk, a perceived risk. Those of us that live and work in Southern California predicted that the probability of a labor disruption was low. But if your company is on the East Coast or in Europe or in Asia, you don't really know that, right? So you have to factor in that risk into doing business here. I was very encouraged by the April 21 communication. Those of us that live and work in the region know that both sides, neither side wanted a disruption. We know how hard they're working to get an agreement. But if you're not in this region and you're not feeling it, you perceive that risk. So my last call out will be, the ports are light, congestion is not there. Let's not take our foot off the pedal to solve those ocean carrier policy issues, demurrage and detention, extended work hours, box rules, what the truckers are going through in the region. Now's the time to get it done, so I'll finish there.
Thanks, Vince. So next, I think we'll turn to Rachel. Rachel runs our California Retailers Association and has been doing just an amazing job. You've probably seen her on the news a time or two. But Rachel, talk to us a little bit about what your members are feeling, thinking. You want to reflect on the craziness of starting that position when you did close those general retail stores?
Yeah, so thanks, Fran. Rachel Michelin, I'm the president and CEO for the California Retailers Association. I had the privilege of starting this role in March of 2019. Spent a year, working and getting my feet wet, and then never expected to then have to navigate a global pandemic and a supply chain crisis. And I do want to congratulate Gene. When we were in the height of that, anytime I called him or his team, he was on a Zoom call, he was talking to my members. Obviously, I had a lot of folks who were very concerned about what was happening, because not only do we have to get that cargo out of the port, but we're the consumer-facing end game. So it was also our employees and our team members who were getting the customers' frustration when they were coming to the stores and shelves weren't stocked or their packages weren't arriving on time. So it was a challenging period of time. I always look at it as the retailers, we are part of every aspect of the supply chain. Whether it's the cargo coming in, manufacturing, the trucks, the rail. So I'm with all of my friends, the warehouses. So we are part of every piece of that. And I think it was a challenge. I kind of learned baptism by fire, all about these different supply chain issues. But I'm really proud of what the retail industry did. We dug in deep. We did everything we could. We worked with all of our partners. We support. I think what is so fabulous is that Chris and Lupe and Paul especially were in Sacramento working together on a lot of these issues, engaging with GoBiz, engaging with the governor. We did a lot of advocacy directly to the governor on how we can work more collaboratively on solving some of these problems. But I do think what happened during this crisis was that we saw where the system of systems had some weak links. Where, Candy, I know we'll talk about it in a few, but the regulations, regulation upon regulation. What astounded me during that whole period of time was that here we are just trying to get goods out of the ports to the consumers, to small businesses in particular, because we always forget how many small businesses, in my case independent retailers, depend on those products to keep their doors open. And at the same token, we're on the phone with regulatory bodies via Zoom trying to fight back on different regulations where we're looking at this collectively saying the technology is not there, this isn't going to work, and it's only going to gump up the supply chain even more. And it wasn't because we didn't want to work on environmental. I will say the retail, national retailers are leading the charge when it comes to environmental sustainability. That's a priority. Why? Because our consumers demand it. But yet, there seemed to be a disconnect, I think. And I think that what we realized was that, to Fran's leadership during this period as well, the system of systems, you're looking at it right here, we all came together. And I think that was a positive. And I think there'll be more things that you'll see the different sectors coming together collaboratively on ways that we can educate policymakers, we can educate the public, we can calm some fears, because there's a lot of fear. I have a lot of my members who are not based in, we have very few national retailers who are headquartered in California. And I can't tell you the number of emails I get. They're freaking out and they're diverting cargo because they want that consistency. I believe in California, I believe in our system, but I think we have to figure out new innovative ways to get that message out and to show the rest of the country and the world that you can depend on the Port of LA, the Port of Long Beach, the other port systems in California, and that we're gonna work together. I think there's a lot of friction, and I think I wanna figure out ways to take down those barriers and have us be able to work with particularly regulatory bodies in the state legislature on how we can really make this the #1 goods movement system in the world.
All right, Rachel, so I'm looking at you. Gonna give you a big shout out. And I first met Rachel when she was leading California Women Lead. So I think we don't know the journeys that we're on sometimes, but that was probably a very good launch point, and I want to give a shout out to the ladies of logistics here because we made Rachel an honorary member and keep going. And then I was flashing back to you being a minister's daughter, and we need that spiritual guidance every now and then too. So with that, we're going to move a little bit along our system of systems, and I'm going to call out my good friend Lupe Valdez from Union Pacific Railroad. So Lupe, you've been sitting on the beach, eating
I've been
bonbons?
cruising. I've been cruising.
No train derailment? You were all good.
We're all good. We're all good. Well, thank you everyone for being here. My name is Lupe Valdez. I'm the Senior Director of Public Affairs for Union Pacific, handling Southern California, Arizona, and Southern Nevada. So I get to see a lot of logistics. And as Rachel was talking, I think the word, at least for me during the pandemic, was pivot. I never heard that word, but I never acted so much as we were during that initial time. And I quickly recall having to call every county health department, and some of which were non-existent in various places in Southern California, to find out what their rules were for our people that were traveling through. I had a state that wasn't allowing our train conductors to cross the boundary without stopping. And we were really in the throes of things that were happening during the pandemic. And then the weirdest thing of being a logistics company, I couldn't figure out, we had to figure out how to get kits to all of our 5,000 engineers and conductors that were in 23 states simultaneously. So we had a lot of challenges, not only as a company, but then, as we were dealing with the CDC and dealing with a number of issues. But I think the one thing I can tell you about Union Pacific is that we haven't stopped investing not only in our people, but in our capital. And that is the one thing I have learned. I came from the public sector 18 years ago, and I learned very quickly in our business that there is always a need to invest in capital with regard to your system. And I think we will continue to do that in the face of some very challenging environmental regulations that have been adopted this past week. The unfortunate thing for California is we believe in clean air. We want to help California achieve that, but it has to be realistic. And I'm telling you that as a former deputy executive officer of the South Coast AQMD. So I've been on the regulatory side, but I also know that business has to continue to provide we're the economic backbone to a number of businesses in Southern California, let alone the consumer market. And we have to be realistic. And as Rachel said, certainty is critical for us. We need the fuel to be there. I can't have a brownout and not move a train. I have to make sure that train moves because it has critical stuff on the train that everyone wants, but it also carries things that clean water, and it carries medicine, and it carries medical machinery, and it carries a number of things. And I have to make sure that it is able to move from point A to B. And I have to put up with any disaster that happens, an earthquake, a flood. We're waiting for the downpours that happened from the rains this past season. Now we're waiting for the snow to melt. And so we have some real challenges that we live with every day to be able to move things. So right now, the regulatory environment is truly going to be extremely challenging to face here in California.
Thanks, Lupe. So next, we're going to move to one of our other partners in our system of systems, and that would be Chris Shimoda. And if y'all don't know Chris, you need to know Chris. So with that, Chris, take it away.
Well, thank you, Fran, and thank you to the LA Chamber for the invite to be with you here today. It's great to see so many people celebrating trade and goods movement. That's not always the case, right? We face a lot of abuse. But the word that Vince said, I think really sums up where we are right now. It's market share. We are losing it. The data bears that out. I know our friends from PMSA are in the audience. Would highly encourage you to take a look at the work they're doing, demonstrating the fact that beneficial cargo owners, the people who actually make the decision to make this region the center of world trade, they are voting with their dollars and moving cargo away from the region. And, I think it's important to remember, we can say, we want you to come here, we want your business, but actions speak a lot louder than words. And I will tell you where I was last week. I had a probably 12-hour hearing.
We
on
were
something-
watching you.
Yeah, something called the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation. And for those that don't know what that is, it is the nation's first zero-emission mandate for trucking fleets. And, it was a probably 6-year in the making regulation. We worked very closely with the Air Resources Board on the development of that rule. And unfortunately, where things landed, I don't believe is going to be good for the goods movement system. Really, our membership, I can tell you, is very supportive of the transition to zero emissions. But with the technology that we have today and the constraints on our electrical grid, our message to the regulators was, you really need to focus on where we can, have mutual success with this technology. It's going to be your traditional e-commerce delivery vehicle that returns to a home base every night, has 8 to 10 hours to charge, will be very low impact on the grid. That technology is here and economically viable in the near term. But that is not where that regulation is going to implement zero-emission technology. It is in every conceivable area of trucking, and that includes the ports, where the vast majority of the businesses, I just took a look at the data, it's maybe 2/3 of the containers are moved by businesses with fewer than 100 trucks, small mom-and-pop type operations. It's got to work in the Central Valley when truckers are trying to get tomatoes out of the field in a very short period of time. It's got to work for construction out in remote work areas. And we just do not have that technology today. And so, what is the outcome of this rule? I think, unfortunately, the word I used earlier was, you can't be a leader if nobody's going to follow you. And that is where I truly believe that we are headed, unless we figure out a way to really open that dialogue with the regulators to say, we want you to be successful, we want the technology to be successful. But when we are looking at, in the ports of LA and Long Beach alone, to give you an idea, we've got around 2,000 trucks that are going to be needing to be retired and replaced with zero-emission technology by 2025. And to charge those trucks, we need the equivalent of roughly 200,000 households worth of electricity. It's 200 megawatts of infrastructure installed to support those truckers. These are, as I think Gene said earlier, first-generation immigrants. We have a minority workforce in trucking, not folks that have a lot of capital to go out and build charging infrastructure, buy trucks that in some cases cost $400,000 to $500,000 over traditional diesels, which cost $50,000 used. Where are we going to get that charging infrastructure? It needed to be in place and being worked on, honestly, 10 years ago in order for it to be ready by 2025. And yet I will close on this, and this is kind of summing up my issues with our regulators right now. When I asked point blank to the person who was in charge at the Air Resources Board on the infrastructure, okay, I need 200 megawatts. Can you tell me any projects which are planned or in the ground right now? The answer was, and this was about a month ago, this rule goes into effect in 9 months. They said, we're looking into it. So that kind of sums it all up. And again, I'll just say, you cannot be a leader if nobody is going to follow you. And so we really need to come to some sort of partnership with the state to make sure that we are not going to fail, because the world is watching.
Okay. I'm going to flash back to the spiritual. If you all turn to hymn 422, we're going to join in. No. Time for a little hymn. Paul,
yes.
Representing our beloved Inland Empire. And in our system of systems, as we love to embrace, it's perhaps the largest public-private partnership ever. And our Inland Empire is a key node in that. So can you share with everybody, we had the Logistics Summit last week, our annual Logistics Summit. Give a little perspective from what's going on out in the Inland Empire. Or you can flash back to those frantic phone calls or maybe spend some more thoughts looking forward. But add to our discussion about the role that of public-private partnerships and the Inland Empire and what's going on.
Okay. So thanks to the LA Chamber, thanks to my good partner, Maria Salinas, for inviting me. So for those of you who don't get past the 605 East, although I think I saw some of you at Coachella or Stagecoach the last couple of weeks, California's Inland Empire, the counties of Riverside and San Bernardino, is now the 12th largest MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area, out of 390 in the United States. We just passed San Francisco, okay? Next is Phoenix. But every one of the MSAs above us has a big city connected to it. New York, Los Angeles, down to Phoenix. And then it's this funny thing called the Riverside, Ontario, San Bernardino Metropolitan Statistical Area, right? So a lot of people don't get us, don't get our size, and they certainly don't get our importance to the economy of the nation and the state and Southern California. So we call it the Inland Empire. Some of us call it the Port Complex East, okay? Because, and I say this with all respect, the ports cannot exist without the warehouses in the Inland Empire. It is a barbell, and you have to have weight on both sides. The connective tissue, the handle, is the railroads, it's the freeways and the trucks, and it's what keeps us in the game. The issues that we're talking about, they're severe, and I don't always think that they're common sense. I think that trade requires we be able to move things. And this question of how we move things is something that we're going to have to grapple with. Otherwise, there's not going to be a trade. There's not going to be a trade. And so for us in the Inland Empire, what do? We help those goods that come through the ports get repositioned and then sent to every congressional district in the United States. We in the Inland Empire and those warehouses are also the home to many manufacturers supporting the Southern California economy, the West Coast economy. Things are still being made in California. And so there's a mix, an interplay between logistics and manufacturing in the Inland Empire. Guarantee you that all of us together, since we got here, have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? All of you that are looking at your phone right now, buying something, pushing purchase, right? We have spent hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, just in the time we will be here. You and I have fundamentally changed the way we purchase goods, okay? We have changed the way we purchase goods, and we're never going back. This concept of fulfillment, that what we wanted, we ordered it here, and we want it when we get home, is going to continue. And that is what is driving the need for warehouses. That is what's driving the need for trucks. We had a great presentation at our Southern California Logistics Council Summit. Couple of points of interest. Those of you in healthcare, how much supply does the average hospital have? If they couldn't get a truck in today, how long can they stay open? 2 weeks?
2 days.
3 days?
2 days.
1 to 2. 1 to 2, right? They are absolutely dependent on the supply chain, okay? So no new home can get built without a truck, right? You got to take the sinks, you got to take the pipes, you got to take the wood, okay? So I agree with Chris. As we move forward, we have to be looking at this in a common sense way. So Fran, I was actually sitting on the beach, okay, in Hawaii. My wife, those of you who have significant others in academia, you know that sometimes they have to go deliver a talk, and you get to go along with. So we were in Waikiki. I have a 11-year-old daughter, so I was taking care of her. And in the morning, we had seen a big cargo ship come into the port of Honolulu. And that evening, we're up in our hotel room, and my wife is looking out at the sunset, and she says, what is that out there? What kind of ship is that? And I looked, and there was a tugboat with probably 100, 150-foot rope pulling a barge. So mental picture, people, mental picture. Tugboat pulling a barge that has maybe 40 TEUs, you know, the regular containers we see at the ports, right? And just moving slow. And why is that? Because the people on the North Shore, they need their stuff. They need their stuff. And it has to get there some way. If we're going to have trade, we need to be able to move things. And the problem we have right now is that people aren't fixated on how to do that.
I think you just retraded.
I did.
I'm just saying. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a side discussion, Rachel and Lupe. Cargo theft, shoplifting, it's unfortunately one of those things you don't think about till you think about it, and then front and center. Do you both have been actively in the midst of all of that? Do you want to talk a little bit about where we are with that?
I can start because little did I know that I would get involved in cargo theft about January a year ago, where I was on front and center with regard to the media. Both Rachel and I were doing interviews, it seemed like. It is a challenging issue. And I will tell you my concern. I am a native Angelino. I grew up here. And it's funny that I was actually raised in the area called Lincoln Heights, which is where the theft cargo was happening. And it's a working class community, always has been in Northeast Los Angeles. And I had never seen the blatant disregard for laws. And one of the concerns that I have just from being in the city that I love is that there is no repercussion for people that are breaking the laws. And I think the judicial part of this world has to step up, because today I had someone that was arrested 70 times on misdemeanor theft, has not seen jail, has not seen a judge, and is out on bail within less than 24 hours. So my concern, and working with the judicial arms of the county, we're focused on that. But these thieves and the people that are infiltrating some of the homeless camps that are out there as well are smart. This is not your average person that goes and steals something. They are very, very smart. They have drones. They are going through things that I've never seen before in working with our law enforcement. And it is a big struggle here, but until there is some accountability for their actions, we are in a world of hurt to be able to move that needle and to get back to the area where people respected the laws and had repercussions if they broke the laws.
So I'd say the folks who know how to work the goods movement the best are criminals. They get it. They know how to go into, they know how to move merchandise. They're not under these CARB rules. They've got their, you know. So let me start with the good news around this issue. And this was another one. I didn't think I would become the criminal justice warrior for the business community that I have become. But California actually leads the nation when it comes to dealing with organized retail crime. In 2018, there was a bill passed, signed by Governor Brown, to establish the organized retail crime, the organized retail crime units through the CHP. And we had 3 of them. We had one in LA, one in the southern border, kind of Orange County down to the southern border, and then one kind of in the Bay Area. Flashback to last year, remember all the smash and grabs we saw all over the state? It was constant, it seemed like. we were able to work with the governor's office, and I will say this was a really good opportunity for us to shine a light on this issue. We were able to get record number of funding, over $300 million in the state budget, to expand those task forces from 3 to 5, dedicated prosecutors for each of those task forces, over $200 million on local law enforcement grants to help local law enforcement, to Lupe's point, to get grants to help, particularly with retail theft and organized retail crime. And we've really raised awareness that this is a problem. But Lupe brings a great point. We were able to do a lot around organized retail crime. And it's not organized retail crime, it's organized crime. You know, years ago, people would sell drugs. That's how these gangs would you know, finance their operations. Now it's like, well, why not? I can just go to a rail, you know, car and steal a bunch of stuff, pilfer through it, take what I know can sell. I can go to a truck, I can stop a truck, they go to the warehouses, they're all over. They know exactly what they can buy or what they can steal and what they're gonna be able to sell. A lot of this merchandise leaves the state. You know, I work now with Homeland Security, the FBI, you know, on all of these types of cases, multi-million-dollar cases that are impacting, particularly mostly our major retailers. But in addition to that, we have another problem which we're trying to fix, which has been extremely frustrating, and that goes to Lupe's point of people who are constantly being arrested for stealing under the $950 threshold, and there's zero consequence for the behavior. Why is that? That's because there is a flaw in Prop 47, and I know that's a very controversial issue, but it's one that until we really figure out how to deal with it, and what we have done from the retailer side is said we just need to bring back some guardrails around that, which is petty theft with a prior. Because currently, you could steal from multiple stores in one day, as long as you're under $950, nothing will happen to you. So you could steal, I've done the math. I could quit my job and just start stealing, and in a year make a heck of a lot more money because there's zero consequence. And unfortunately, to Lupe's point, what we're seeing is the ages of people committing crime getting younger. We're seeing some of these gangs focusing on vulnerable populations, the homeless, people with drug addiction. I have members who will say it's repeat offenders. It's the same people who come into the stores, steal, sell the goods on the street, buy drugs, come back in, and it's constant. Hence why, if you've seen the news in San Francisco, the Target has locked up almost every personal item in the store. So if you go in and want to buy razors, deodorant, whatever, now you have to get an employee to come and unlock it. And that will happen across the state of California if we don't do something to change it. And so, you know, we continue to work on this issue because it's not about, in my opinion, the monetary loss. It's about the safety of our employees. We are seeing employees, you know, unfortunately, you know, just last month, a Home Depot employee was killed. Last year, a Safeway employee was killed. It's about the safety of our customers, and it's about the neighborhoods in which we operate in. And again, it goes back to the point of when people who are not based in California, they see this happening in the state, they sit here and wonder, why are we gonna invest in a goods movement when we've got trucks that have to be, you know, battery operated by 2025, and we don't have the infrastructure to do it, and California is famous for rolling blackouts in the summer, when we had backups at the ports, when we can't work with regulatory bodies, where it seems to be a disconnect between common sense regulation and legislation when it comes to the goods movement, and on top of it, you're watching the governor out at the rail yards surrounded by Amazon boxes, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, of just thieves who have just thrown out merchandise because they're stealing it and selling it on the online marketplace. The other point I'll end on is that, but we are trying to change that as well. California, last year we passed the California Inform Act, which basically puts some guardrails around more transparency on who's selling on online marketplaces. Because we passed it in California, and I was really proud of the fact that we were the only state to pass that with 0 no votes and 0 opposition, it became the catalyst to get Congress to move to pass it at a federal level, which is what we needed, because obviously we all know the internet doesn't stop at the California border. So we're making progress. Unfortunately, the hardest piece of it is these changes to Prop 47. And I would say as business leaders, you know, that's where we need your help. If we don't change that, it's only going to continue to get worse. and continue to put our employees in jeopardy.
Yikes.
Sorry. I started with the good stuff. We got funding.
Okay, so when I started my career, I was basically, on commercial real estate, sent down to the ports, I think it was like 2001, 2002, and our chair heard from our tenants they couldn't get their containers from the port. So I was sent down there, and I'm sure Ed thought that there was a traffic light out. I was going to go fix a traffic light. It would be great. Well, I went down there, and I just jumped in. And I love to say I never came home. But anyway, in those days, those early days, we had double-digit increases projected. I don't know if it was Chris or Vince that really talked about that. We had the hiccup of the subprime market, and those of us in commercial real estate thought we were too cool for school, but guess what? That affected the whole economy, as we all remember. And then we took off, we recovered, and we've had the best years, but the market has grown larger than we've grown. So let's think about what we collectively can do together. We mentioned a small business economy. I think for a lot of folks, Chris, you may have been on the hearing for 12 hours, but most of us had other work we were doing. So I think about how we collectively, where are the big ideas here of moving forward together, and the theme of the conferences really are sustainable, and as you all mentioned, a lot of partnerships in how we get there. Let's go through and think about what big ideas. I mean, technology is something that always comes up. I know our port leaders were just in DC, I think yesterday, talking about the FLOW program, but let's talk about how are we better together, and for all of the folks, because if we do think of our system of systems, and I love it when people start talking not in terms of moving from A to B, and we do love our railroads, but most of these things, their A and Bs are all different, and I see this giant Rubik's Cube. So throughout, I don't care which ideas you want to go, you want to mix up the order there. Who has a great idea of what we can do? Well, let's go for it.
I hope so. That's probably shared with many of you here. So all of us in the private sector know our customers will pay a bit more. It's going to cost more to use this port complex than other ports in the country. But we have to drive value. It can't be just because. It has to be, we have to connect that cost to a value that they could go back to their association and say, this is what we're getting. So I'll go to congestion. I think this is a great opportunity to share all the work that was done in 21 and 22 with all of the stakeholders in this room to really tell the global market why that won't happen again. Why won't that happen again? The terminals are light right now. Hopefully they will not stay that way. They'll be very busy very soon. And how do we tell everybody, hey, that's not going to happen again? Because when we talk to our customers, they don't want a 3-year plan to make an investment in this region. They need a 5 to 7 year stretch to really make an investment. So I think if we could tie this higher transaction cost to leveraging the digital programs that the Port of Long Beach and the Port of Los Angeles have, and really tie that benefit to the stakeholders in this room, the brokers, the forwarders, the BCOs, that's a great argument. We're ahead of the rest of the country, but we really have to show the value. Secondly, I see this tremendous trend to nearshoring in northern Mexico. We're very lucky we're the only way to get there. Our company has tried it through Houston. We've tried it through Ensenada. It does not work. You have to come through LA Long Beach. And there's e-commerce on the southern border, Otay Mesa, Calexico, Mexicali, Tijuana, and we're the only way through. So that trend in direct-to-consumer and that trend in nearshoring, diversifying out of China, this region and this market should be really looking at that as an opportunity and justifying the extra cost to come here. And when I say extra cost, there's a degree, right? There has to be a scope. I'll say one thing about CARB before I move on. I'm very proud to be in a region where this is important. We lack a federal standard for U.S. ports in CARB, and our investments in CARB are necessary, but in the short term, it makes us not competitive. Right. So in the long term, I think it can be a great competitive advantage. I've heard some people say how much longer, but when there is a mandate federally or otherwise that all U.S. ports have this CARB mandate, then these ports will be ahead. But in the short term, it's going to be very expensive. And I'm not saying not to do it. We just have to get smarter. A lot of smart people in this room. We have to get smarter as a region on how to roll that out and be successful with that.
And Fran, we're investing in $100 million worth of battery electric locomotives. They are switcher engines that are staying in Southern California. Now, I still have to get energy, by the way, to these locomotives. It just doesn't happen with a switch. So I'm going from 2 megawatt to about 50 to 60 megawatt, if not 100. I have to have my own substation. In working with our local electric company, they said, oh, it'll take 5 to 7 years. I don't have 5 to 7 years. I want to get these locomotives. I start getting them next year. So we are investing. UP believes in investment. We opened up an intermodal facility in the Inland Empire because that's where a lot of the logistics are happening, and they just had to come to LA to drop off a box. Now they have a location in the Inland Empire that they can go to. But all of these things take time. They do not happen overnight. And that's why we're working with we'll continue to work with our regulators to explain to them the process and explain to them how we're moving in different directions. We're testing the synthetic fuels. We have to make sure, though, they work. We have to make sure the warranty on my, $1.5 million locomotive is not blown out because I put in the wrong fuel. So we have to, all these things just take time to work through, and that's what we're going to continue doing. And we're going to continue investing in Southern California. We love our ports, both Long Beach and Los Angeles. We need to work as a team to accomplish these goals. We have challenges. We have air quality challenges, but we want clean air as well. And we just have to do it together in a methodical way that gets us there and doesn't have us spending money and then it not doing what it needs to do to get to clean air. We just have to take steps. All of a sudden we want to jump, leapfrog, and we need to take the steps to get there. It started with cars. It normally goes to light industrial trucks. It goes to heavy duty trucks, and then it went to locomotives. That normally is a progression of clean energy type vehicles, and that's the way it had worked for years. And so right now we're just struggling through that because we obviously want to get there, but the infrastructure and the energy generation is not here yet.
And I think to your point, Lupe, when I talk to my member companies who are very committed to environmental sustainability, they're investing. They say to me, if government and regulators would get out of our way, we could actually accomplish these goals so much faster. Because part of what happens is you spent 12 hours at a hearing, right? I mean, that's the amount of time that we're having to spend to explain this over and over again is time that we could be focused on how do we tell that story? And I will say I think there has been a challenge, and we have not, as a goods movement group, told the story in the right way to the right people. As we sit here and talk today, everyone here is somehow connected to the goods movement, right? We don't have regulators here, or we don't have elected officials, or a lot of them or their staff here. We need to do a better job of explaining and telling the story and showing how we're all interconnected and that we are committed to investing. We are committed. I have member companies who are investing in clean trucks, but the smaller ones, they're delivering because they consume, you're right. They want to be able to order on your phone and have that product to you within hours now. That's the standard in the retail industry, right? That's what they're all striving towards. And they're all investing in what Chris talked about, the smaller vehicles, community vehicles that can do that, which is a great place to start. But I think that part of the challenge is that we have to, as an industry, collectively tell the story better, promote the investments that we're making, but then also, educate regulators, I know, Chris, you spent hours educating a legislator who had a bill that would dramatically, and they didn't understand it because they come in and they think this is a great idea and they don't get the unintended consequences. And then what happens? In 2025, I think we all know, you'll be in front of the same body and they'll be saying, we don't have the infrastructure. We can't support this regulation. And then what?
Yeah, just to build on that, I know Fran and I go back to the original Freight Mobility Plan, and I think this sums up our state's attitude about the goods movement system. I can't recall the state, it was either Minnesota or another Midwestern state, structured this entire plan to get federal dollars to support their soybean industry. It was entirely about soybean exports. If you looked at our freight mobility plan, I don't think there was a single mention of a single economic sector that we were trying to support with these investments. It was just, how are we going to tamp down on emissions? That was the vast majority of what that plan really consisted of. And I chalk it up to, I can recall a time in my life that I probably had no clue how anything got to my doorstep. Went to UC, had no clue what working people did for a living, but that's changed in my time working with the Trucking Association. And I do think that it's that disconnect between the class of people who write these sort of plans and the actual, our membership represents drivers who 80% of our workforce have a high school education or less. It's one of the last remaining blue-collar workforces, probably the largest in the state. And that is what I think is missing from our discussions. Our transportation funding discussions are increasingly about how do we not spend money on transportation. I mean, that is, I think, summing up the problem where the leaders in this room especially, we do need to tell the story that it's not just an emissions issue. It's not just, I don't want these warehouses and trucks. We're employing the very people who are having the most difficulty in our state right now with the cost of living, who cannot be just on a dime retrained to become software engineers and learn coding. This is really the industry which is employing these folks, and it needs to remain vibrant. And economic prosperity is going to lift all boats, and we really need to tell that part of the story. Because, quite frankly, the loudest voices, this is a powerful room to be in, but the loudest voices are not the people in this room. The people who are driving a lot of the decisions, quite frankly, I just spent 12 hours with them. I heard attacks on capitalism, and we just need to completely, reshape the whole way that the economy works, and, those are the folks who are driving the agenda. And we just need to be able we need to be able to stand up for, look, people need clean air, they need to be employed. There's a way to do this in a sensible manner. We used to do it, quite frankly. We used to be able to balance those two things, but we've definitely gone out of whack, and we need to, again, be vocal about trying to get back to that it's called economic and environmental balance, right?
Great. Paul.
And moving goods is what Southern California does, right? In the Inland Empire, just in trucking and warehousing, it's almost 300,000 jobs of people who probably don't have a baccalaureate degree and are very diverse. And so we need to celebrate that, right? We're fixated on the warehouses being next to homes, right? At our logistics summit, we had a presentation. Prologis chief economist puts up a picture and says, where is this? Warehouses next to homes, right? Somebody says Fontana. Another person says Ontario. She says, that's the Netherlands. Puts up another picture. Where's this? Nobody wants to say, right? That's Spain. What do Spain and the Netherlands have in common? A port complex that is bringing in goods and fulfilling our needs, okay? The missing piece for California is the economic development potential. We should be a leader in the new technologies, right? Someday the UPS truck is going to pull up in front of your house and small little robots delivering packages are just going to go out there, right? It's faster and it's cleaner, and that's how it's going to happen. Then someday the drone is going to land in your backyard. We should be the leader in that. Inside our warehouses, the new conveyance systems, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, we should be the leader in that. But we're spending so much time beating down the goods movement sector that other states and other regions of the country are leading in that. So again, a missed opportunity. And we're going to need the jobs, and we need the economic development as we go into the next century.
All right, so as Stanley T. Olofsen talked about in 1926, I would say we all have our work cut out for us. So thank you to our panelists for everything you do, for being a part of this amazing San Pedro Bay ports goods movement ecosystem. So join me, you all, in thanking our panelists.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wasn't that great? Wonderful discussion. Our huge thank you to Fran for leading it and to our panelists for that enlightening talk. We learned so much. We're almost there, almost at the end of this part of the program. So now I'd like to bring in Maria back up to the stage to help close out this morning's program. Maria.
Thank you so much. And was that not an amazing panel, amazing discussion? Let's give them another round of applause. If you care about global trade, this is the place where you need to be with the LA Chamber, who's having those conversations about how do we remain competitive here in the Los Angeles region. All these conversations that were held here today, I truly value the partners that came together, and thank you to Fran Inman. Let's give her another round of applause. Fran truly understands that it's a system of systems, and if we need to be collaborating and working together to make sure that we remain competitive, that we're leading on innovation. And like our good board chair, A.G. Spanos, thank you for being here, but he always reminds us that the future is here. So when I hear the comments that Paul Granillo is making, that type of technology is here, and we need to embrace it, and we need to make sure that we're telling the good stories about the great things that Los Angeles is doing. So thank you all very much to that panel that just knocked it out of the park. Another round of applause for them. Congratulations again to Gene Soroka on being recognized this morning. It is such a pleasure to have him as a great partner for the LA Chamber, and we look forward to our continued work together. Thank you, Gene, for being with us this morning. General Lyons, thank you so much for your partnership with the Los Angeles Area Chamber, for your words and the wisdom and the work that is ahead for you and your office. We are here to help support you, and I really appreciate you joining us as well. Thank you so much. This brings us to the end of this program. I want to thank the Chamber team for all their work in bringing this program here together. It is one of the highlights for us to celebrate global trade with all of you. World Trade Week Committee, thank you so much for all the work that you have done. Our MC, David Ono, and all of you for being here with us today. So I encourage you to visit the website at worldtradeweek.com for additional information on getting engaged in global trade and the initiatives that we have and making sure you stay up to date. We have various activities on the calendar there, so I encourage you to take advantage of taking a look at that information. And on your way out, make sure to check out the items and the vacations that are available in the silent auction. So I want to thank everybody who contributed towards that effort. Thank you for attending World Trade Week. This morning has been truly wonderful, and we're so pleased that you were with us. We look forward to continuing this dialogue and to seeing you back here on this stage in 2024. Thank you all very much.
This concludes our program this morning. Thank you for attending the 97th Annual World Trade Week.
Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city I live in, the city of angels. Lonely as I am, together we cry. I drive on the streets 'cause she's my companion. I walk through her hills 'cause she knows who I am. She sees my good deeds and she kisses me winning. But I'll never worry, now that is a lie. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. Oh, yeah. It's hard to believe that there's nobody out there. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have her love, the city she loved me. Lonely as I am, together we cry. Well, I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. about it.
Lying here with you so close to me, it's hard to fight these feelings when it feels so hard to breathe. I'm caught up in this moment, I'm caught up in your smile.
I've never opened up to anyone, so hard to hold back when I'm holding you in my arms. But we don't need to rush this, let's just take it slow. Just a kiss on your lips in the moonlight, just a touch of the fire burning so bright. No, I don't wanna mess this thing up, no, I don't wanna push too far. Just a shot in the dark that you just might be the one I've been waiting for my whole life. So baby, I'm alright with just a kiss goodnight. I know that if we give this a little time, it'll only bring us closer to the love we wanna find. It's never felt so real. No, it's never felt so right. Just a kiss on your lips in the moonlight, just a touch of the fire burning so bright. No, I don't wanna mess this thing up, I don't wanna push too far. Just a shot in the dark that you just might be the one I've been waiting for my whole life. So baby, I'm alright with just a kiss goodnight. No, I don't wanna say goodnight. I know it's time to leave, but you'll be in my dreams tonight. Tonight. Just a kiss on your lips in the moonlight, just a touch of the fire burning so bright.
whisper, let's don't talk. Baby, leave my t-shirt in the hall. Like a needle finds a groove, baby, we'll remember what to do to drown out every distraction. It's time we made it happen. Strip it down, back to you and me, like it used to be when it was an old back road with an old school beat. Cowboy boots by your little bare feet. Let it out, tell me right now, everything I need in them white cotton sheets. Dirty dance me slow in the summertime heat. Feel my belt turn loose from these old blue jeans. We both know that we lost it somehow. Let's get it found, strip it down, down, down. I wanna drop this cell phone now, let it shatter on the ground. They ain't holding nothing, these two hands, until they're holding you again. Oh, strip it down, back to you and me, like it used to be when it was an old back road with an old school beat. Cowboy boots by your little bare feet. Let it out, tell me right now, everything I need in them white cotton sheets. Dirty dance me slow in the summertime heat. Feel my belt turn loose from these old blue jeans. We both know that we lost it somehow. Let's get it found, strip it down, down, down. Strip it down, down, down. I don't wanna let you go, no, not tonight. I just wanna love you so bad, baby. So let's close our eyes and strip it down, back to you and me, like it used to be when it was an old back road with an old school beat. Cowboy boots by your little bare feet. Let it out, tell me right now, everything I need in them white cotton sheets. Dirty dance me slow in the summertime heat. Feel my belt turn loose from these old blue jeans. We both know that we lost it somehow. Let's get it found, strip it down, down, down. Strip it down, down, down. Strip it down, down, down.
Feeling my way through the darkness, guided by a beating heart. I can't tell where the journey will end, but I know where to start. They tell me I'm too young to understand. They say I'm caught up in a dream. Well, life will pass me by if I don't open up my eyes. So that's fine by me. So wake me up when it's all over.